Hey, what's up? Phable here. Today I'm really happy because I can share some exciting news for Quantum and Iridium users. Sample Robot 6.6 fully supports now both synthesizers. For those of you who don't know what Sample Robot is, it is an automatic sample library creator that helps you to sample a lot of different sounds and create out of those samples huge multi-sample libraries. If you think about it, sampling is a very boring task. You just have a sound, put it across a key range or a velocity range, that's it. It takes a lot of time and it's not very creative. Sample Robot helps you to streamline this process. On top of that, something really great is the VST host. And Sample Robot lets you sample VST plugins, which is really cool. For this, I've used the Waldorf Streichfett, which is the latest addition to Waldorf's plugin range. It's an emulation of the Streichfett hardware. Really cool. Check that out. Sounds really cool. And yeah, that is just a breeze to use. And with that Streichfett plugin, I've created some samples. Let me just quickly show you how you would create a multi-sample with Sample Robot. So I've opened up a new project, which I've called Streichfett. You would create the project with this add button, and then you can create another project. And once you have created the project, go to the multi-sample. So here we are going to create the multi-sample. So I hit the add button under multi-sample, and I'm going to call that strings because we're going to do that with Streichfett, and Streichfett is well known for the string sounds. Once we've done that, we get a new menu which has a lot of tabs. And the first one is I/O. And here we are actually going to tell Sample Robot which audio feed we are going to sample. So in this case, we're taking the audio from the VST plugin. And then I'm going to say that the plugin format, the audio format should be in stereo, and it's going to be 24-bit. And then we are selecting the MIDI out, and that is going to be the VST plugin. And next we have the recording tab. Here we are able to set the note length for every note that we are going to sample. I really like that here, but I don't need that long recording pause because there's no need for that, because we have an automatic loop detection, and strings are kind of easy to crossfade and do loop points with those. So I'm trusting Sample Robot to take the sample and then create automatic loop points. Great. So down here we have the keyboard, and here we have the option to say how many steps we are going to sample. So by default, this is every 6 semitone, which I really like. So we are going to take 6 steps, but I would increase the key range and say, let's do this 61 across a 61 keyboard. Right. So I'm going to add more keys to that. So as you can tell, we have now a clear representation of the keyboard range that we are going to sample. Once we've done all those things, we can simply hit the recording button. Another thing that is really great before we're going to do that is we have an estimation algorithm in Sample Robot. So if I hit Command E, I get an estimate of how long the sample process will take and how much space on my hard disk drive I need. Really cool. So let me go over here and hit record, and then we can start the recording. And what you can see is Sample Robot is now sampling every 6 semitone and is creating automatically loop points. You would have to do that manually by hand. This would take such a long time. So this is now taken care of for me. So for that, you go to the import-export menu point, and then you can see the list of supported sampler formats. And down at the bottom, there is the world of Quantum and Iridium, and they use a so-called .map file. And once you click on that, you have a menu dialog that lets you choose at which sample rate you would like to export that. I usually go for 24-bit, and once you're done with that, you hit OK, and then you select the folder where you want to export that. In this case, I'm using the SD card from my Iridium. Sample Robot will create a so-called samples folder, and yeah, there will be stored all the projects, i.e. all the sounds that you're going to create. So I hit up open, and here I could put in the folder name. We don't need that. And then I could name the map file, everything there. And yeah, I already did that. So let's take a look at the Iridium folder. This is the Iridium SD card. And here, as I told you earlier, there is the samples folder. And if I click on that, there is the Streichfett multi-sample that I created. If I go in there as well, you see the .map file and all the samples that I've created. So now we can take this file and those samples and load it in to the Iridium. After we exported the map file onto the SD card, just put your SD card back into the Iridium or Quantum, and then we can essentially start to process the samples in the synthesizer engine. So for that, we start a new preset. I hit up the load button, and I'm gonna initialize the patch. Then I can go to oscillator 1, and here we have the section for every oscillator or kernel. And in this case, I'm using the particle engine because we want to load up a sample. So next, I'm going to the Actions menu, and there is the Load Map menu entry. I click that, and as you can tell, we have to switch from internal to the USB drive. That's not the one. We want the SD card. And there we have the created folder from Sample Robot, which is samples. And there we have the Streichfett folder from the project. And I hit that. And there we see the Streichfett map file. So I click on that, select load. You can see now that we load up all the samples. And as you can tell, we have all the created samples from Sample Robot now in the list. And they are mapped correctly to each key, and they are spread across the keyboard. And also, really nice, what you can see is that we also have the loop points. So if I click on the note, the loop is created and it works seamlessly. Even when I put on the chord and go back, you can see everything works. And if you want to have a detailed view, we go to the edit view, and there we see that the loops are working perfectly. This is pretty great. So this is the starting point for me. I would now start to work with the samples. So normally what I do is I have one oscillator and another second oscillator, and there I would use the tools button and go copy from oscillator 1. And now what you can hear is that I have two oscillators playing the same sample over the key range. And I can play around with the pitch variance if I want to and create an even more like chorusy effect. But what I normally do is to thicken up the sound is I use the secondary oscillator and I pitch it down a whole octave step. So now I fattened up the sound quite dramatically. Pretty cool stuff. And not only that, I usually then start to find my samples, not only my samples, but also start to add more colors by using the wavetables, because they blend in perfectly. So oscillator 3 will also be used in this case. That's the resonant wave, but I like the harmonics wave. Pretty cool sound. And then we just start to filter out and play around with the envelopes, you know, like so that's pretty cool. I can play around now with a lot of different things, and I've created some sounds out of that Streichfett for you to check out. So let's see. So this is a patch that I did with the Streichfett samples and some engines. So let's take a listen. Pretty cool patch, pretty ethereal. I love the Iridium and the Quantum for those kind of sounds. Like having those huge evolving pads created out of a mixture of samples and you know, like virtual analog stuff is pretty amazing. I've been looking for such a sound like for a very long time, and it's all in there, and I love it so much. So I hope I could help you out with that video. Just get creative, start your own sample libraries, sample your old synthesizers, load them into the Iridium or the Quantum, and just have fun with sampling. I think it's one of the most creative ways to get to new sounds, and I love it really much. Okay, so thank you guys for watching, and have fun with the Iridium.